طلع البدر علينا من ثنيات الوداع وجب الشكر علينا ما دعا لله داع.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We've been talking about the life of the Prophet. We're going to talk about how signing a peace treaty changed everything. In Battle of Badr, of course, the Battle of Badr ensued. Muslims won the battle, despite some loss of life, but heavy casualty on the other side. According to historians, and of course you will find this in the Quran, the reason why they won the war is because of their resolve in the cause. Single track, complete and utter devotion and reliance on Allah Azza wa Jal. Nothing more. Not reliance on wealth and their property, or their power, or their number, nothing. 300 against 1,000, and yet 300 won. Such an amazing feat of victory. The defeat of the Meccans caused shockwave in the whole peninsula. Suddenly, Muslims in Medina were to be a force to be reckoned with. How can they not be considered for anything in the coming days? Geopolitics of the area required a serious look at these people. Meccans were not going to take that defeat lying down, are they? So they went back and they started planning for the next attack. Very soon after, the next battle took place, Battle of Uhud, in which Muslims were 1,000 in number and Quraysh or Meccans were more in 10,000, according to some historians. They came fully prepared, laden with wealth, property and armors. Horses, camels, they had everything. Food. They even had dancers and singers within their midst. Prophet ﷺ had about 1,000 at the beginning of his battle, but 300 of them left, deserting the companions, so he was left about with 700. Prophet ﷺ left his companions in different positions of responsibility, and some of them who did not listen became too attracted by their numbers, became too reliant on their power, became laxed in their total belief in Allah and reliance on Him. What happened? It was a great tragedy. Companions were killed. Muslims suffered a huge defeat. They could have been obliterated, but for some odd reason they were not. But defeat was a major blow. More than 70 of the companions died, including Prophet's own uncle Hamza was killed and mutilated very badly. And many other good companions, prominent ones, were killed in that battlefield. Prophet himself was injured very badly. Umar was so disillusioned. It's unbelievable if you read the story in details. But I don't have the time to tell you the story in details. I have the time to discuss the morals of the story. What happened? In Badr, companions were completely reliant on Allah, not on power or their number. In Uhud, they became more relaxed about their dependence on Allah and became more reliant on the number and their power. We won the previous battle with 300. We were 700 this time. We were stronger. We can win. More attracted by the booty, the wealth that could be picked up when you're pursuing a running army, a retreating army. So in the beginning of that battle of Uhud, the Meccans were losing, so they were retreating. And those companions were left in vital positions, betrayed their positions, did not obey the command, and they went running to collect wealth. What that meant was a huge attack. What that meant was a huge defeat. And Allah in the Quran categorically makes it a decisive lesson. A lesson that they will never forget. They learned a lesson. And interesting, again Allah reminds us in the Quran, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ فَاعْفُ عَنْهُمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. Allah Azza wa Jal reminds us in the Quran that, O Muhammad, if it wasn't for the mercy of Allah, those people around you would have fled from you, run away from you. But Allah Azza wa Jal has given you a very compassionate, kind heart. Allah is referring to Battle of Uhud here. When they make a mistake, you forgive them and you ask Allah for forgiveness on their behalf. He's talking about the deserters who left him wounded in the middle of the battlefield, protected by some of his companions, including a few women who came to his rescue. He was unconscious, he was on the floor, broken tooth and cut, bleeding head. All of those deserters, under normal circumstances, in a battlefield, in the rule of war, would be court-martialed. But Prophet ﷺ forgave them. And he asked Allah to forgive them too. And he still consulted them in every affair. And then فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ, and once he had decided on a matter after consulting them, he would rely on Allah fully. That became the ultimate statement from Allah Azza wa Jal. So brothers and sisters, what do we learn from this particular story? Reliance on wealth is absolutely useless. Reliance on power is futile. Reliance on our strength is not only futile but detrimental. But reliance on Allah is always the best way forward. So no matter how much wealth you like, no matter how much power you have, none of those are useful. And that's what Rasulullah had in Battle of Uhud as a lesson. And the companions, of course. Then they all went back to their own homes, took stock. In other words, they evaluated what had happened and they now wanted to do things better. So Prophet ﷺ and the companions together decided that they should go for Umrah or Hajj. Umrah and Hajj to Mecca. When they started their march in Ihram, not being armed, the Meccans said to the Muslims, sorry, we're not going to allow you into Mecca. Not this year. Rasulullah sent Uthman ibn Affan to Mecca to mediate on their behalf, but they said no. And in fact, news was spread that Uthman has been assassinated. That made all the companions furious. You don't assassinate an ambassador. Assassination of ambassador is a state crime. It's an international crime, even at that time. So the companions took oath that we will avenge the death of Uthman and otherwise we are not returning home. Prophet ﷺ, on the other hand, was longing for a peaceful solution. So they sent from Mecca a Meccan delegation, and from Muslims they appointed a Muslim arbitrator, and they sat down to write the treaty of peace. No need to war, O Muslims, don't worry about it. You can't go to war this year, but let's sign a peace treaty. You can't go to Hajj or Umrah this year, but let's sign a peace treaty. That was the agreement. So they signed a peace treaty. What does this peace treaty say? The peace treaty began in the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most beneficent. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The Meccans objected. Who is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim? We don't recognize. Cut that off. So Ali ibn Abi Talib was the scribe, cut it off. And then the peace treaty said, this is a peace treaty between Muhammad Rasulullah and the Meccan, the ambassador of Mecca who was there on their behalf. He complained saying, I don't recognize you, Muhammad, as the Prophet of Allah. If I did, there would be no problem. Please cross it off and write Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Ali ibn Abi Talib refused to cross it off. Prophet ﷺ said to Ali, cross it off. Ali said, no, Ya Rasulullah, I can't do that. Prophet ﷺ said, show me where it is so I can cross it off myself. So Prophet ﷺ was shown where it is. He crossed his name and asked Ali ibn Abi Talib to write Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Now, I want you to note the whole concept of compromise here. The compromise not only was here, but Muslims were not to do Hajj and Umrah this year. They would be allowed a time later on. They would go back. There would be no war between the communities for 10 years. If a person left Mecca and came to Medina, he must be returned or she must be returned to Meccans. However, a Muslim was to leave Medina and go to Mecca, they will not be returned. Completely unfair treaty. Muslims were not happy with this treaty. But Prophet ﷺ signed the treaty. And that was the end of that treaty. There was a mutiny within the companions. They are not listening to this treaty. They are not accepting this treaty. It's unfair. Prophet ﷺ came to his wife saying, please advise me, what do I do? His wife said, O Prophet of Allah, how do you come out of Ihram? That's what you need to be in a state of Ihram to do Hajj and Umrah. And Prophet is still in his Ihram with all his companions. His wife said, Prophet ﷺ, tell me, how do you come out of it? Prophet ﷺ said, by shaving your hair. So Prophet ﷺ was told by his wife, shave your hair, O Prophet of Allah, they will follow you. When Rasulullah ﷺ shaved his hair, took his ihram clothes off and wore normal clothes, all the companions realized, game's over. We cannot actually go and do Umrah and Hajj. Prophet has broken his ihram. So they followed. A war, a mutiny was averted by listening to Prophet ﷺ listened to his wife. So those men who don't like listening to their wife, a reminder for you, discriminating a woman on the basis that their advice is not good enough is against Islam actually. Islam and Muslim women's contribution in Islam is embedded in every sphere of the history of Islam. I don't have the time to discuss that in details. But what I have the time to do is to draw the lessons. What happened within that 10 years? The companions came back. Guess what? Allah revealed the verses of the Quran. Inna fatahna laka fathan mubina. Today we've given you the biggest victory of Muhammad. By signing a peace treaty, Rasulullah received a revelation confirming from Allah that peace treaty is the biggest victory. Battle of Uhud wasn't, of course. Battle of Badr wasn't, or any other battles that happened were not classified as biggest victory, except Treaty of Hudaybiyah is known as. So peace treaty is embedded in Islam, brothers and sisters. One of the greatest achievement of the Prophet was he was the peacemaker. He was indeed the peacemaker of the Arabian Peninsula, in fact of the entire world. When the world was too busy warring between themselves, he brought normality and humanity in the discussion. He brought compassion and mercy. He ended years and years of warfare between tribes. He made justice the prerequisite for every judgment, for every action. He made compassion and mercy the essential tool by which we develop relationship. That's the contribution of Peace Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Guess what? Thousands of people embraced Islam during that period. Thousands. Tribes of all of Arabia. People of all over the world. Prophet sent companions as ambassadors to China and other parts of the world, to the Persian Emperor, to the Roman Emperor, because there was peace treaty and people could travel around. So ultimate objective of Prophet's life was to establish peace globally and develop people's character internally. I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, I will tell you a bit more about how Rasulullah focused on developing character and humanity within his companions and left with us legacy of compassion and mercy. So don't go too far away. Assalamu alaikum.
وجب الشكر علينا ما دعا لله داع.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. We're talking about our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and how signing of peace treaty transformed that society and the whole of Arabian Peninsula as well as surrounding countries and nations. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was able to reach, and his companions were able to reach even as far as China. That's because of the peace treaty. And also the doors of Mecca opened again. A people who refused him his own right to stay in his own home. A people who kicked them out, fought them bitterly. You know what? Mecca opened. It's called Fath al-Makkah. And the opening of Fath al-Makkah is amazing. Prophet ﷺ came with all his companions and the Meccans were terrified. They thought, now is going to be time Muhammad is going to take revenge for what we have done. For they're powerful today and we're weak. Guess what the Prophet did though? He did not take revenge. He did not seek revenge from anybody. He gave a general amnesty to every single person around. He said, for you are all forgiven. I am one of your son. I have not come here to cause bloodbath. God has not sent me on this earth to destroy people. He came, opened the door, cleansed Mecca and the Kaaba of the idols that had been installed. He established the worship of one God as it was at the time of Ibrahim and throughout human history. That was Fath al-Makkah, a significant event, repatriating the Muslims back to their own home. It's homecoming again as far as Muslims are concerned. but through Prophet's magnanimous character, his gracefulness, he was able to forgive everybody. Can you forgive people when they do something wrong against you? Forgiveness and forgiving others is very tough. Most of us can't. It's too tough for us, too taxing most of the time. And yet, forgiveness is the cornerstone of an Islamic personality. Prophet focused on developing person and their character. He said, "Inni bu'istu liutammima makarim al-akhlaq." I've been sent to perfect morality of people, their conduct and their character. And that's exactly what Prophet did. Demonstrated in his own life, and whole of Medina, he transformed the characters of worst people to best of people. And you know what? It became very clear that Prophet's own time is coming to an end. While Muslims were happy that they were repatriated back to their own home in Mecca, Mecca has been opened and cleansed, but sadness and remorse, in fact grief, began to set in the hearts and minds of some of the companions. They realized that Prophet ﷺ is not going to be with them for too long. Prophet ﷺ made the farewell speech, the most amazing speech that sums up the entire mission of Prophet ﷺ's life. And he said, "O my people, lend me an attentive ear, for I don't know whether I'll be alive to be with you next time. Please pass on this message to those people who are not here today. Did I convey to you the message of God?" "Yes, you did, O Prophet of Allah," people chanted. Prophet then pointed his finger to the sky and said, "Ya Allah, be witness that my people have given, and they have witnessed that I have conveyed your message." Then he said to them some very fundamental principles of Islam. Number one, be aware of shaitan, for he is always looking out to misguide you. He gave a speech about the rights of people in property. He abolished all sorts of usury, interest-based transaction. He said no more people would be killed as a means to avenging death of anybody. He said women are to be treated equally and never violated. He abolished slavery and those slaves who are unequally treated. He abolished once and for all racism based on color, gender, or any other prejudices. Imagine a prophet 1400 years ago making such universal declaration of justice and peace in the world. These formed the very cornerstone of prophetic mission. Prophet himself was about to die, and he did not leave his companions confused. He left them with a solid, united voice, united resolve to do one thing, and that is to be good to Allah, that is their relationship with Allah, the vertical relationship, and to be good to one another, the horizontal relationship. So the entire life of the Prophet can be summed up in managing those and inspiring others to manage those. Relationship between them and Allah, and relationship between each other. Prophet was the most kind and the most merciful amongst his people. Prophet was forgiving, compassionate. Prophet was welcoming even to his enemies. You know the story when a man urinated in the mosque of the Prophet. A man urinated in the mosque of the Prophet. What did the Prophet do? Prophet did not scream and shout at him. Companions did, some of them at least. Prophet told the companions to leave the man alone, let him finish what he's doing. And then Prophet asked them to bring some water, and he himself cleaned it. Prophet's magnanimity was well known amongst all people. Prophet was so clear about his mission. He was there to help people to develop deeper, meaningful relationship with their fellow human being based on justice and fairness. And Prophet's mission was about helping people to reconnect with Allah, the original word that was revealed to Prophet at the first revelation. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Read in the name of your Lord who created you. In other words, rediscover your God. Reconnect with Allah. Reorient yourself with nature. Become the person you are supposed to be. Naturally hardwired to believe in God, and therefore don't run away from God. Important, yes, but essential to our living, that reconnection and rebalancing. Prophet's life is very beautifully summed up when Prophet ﷺ died by Aisha radiallahu anha. When a companion came and said to Aisha, "Oh Aisha, can you please tell us about the Prophet? What was he like? We really want to know." Aisha said in a very beautiful word, "Do you not read the Quran?" "Huh? What do you mean, do I not read the Quran? Of course I read the Quran. I read the Quran, sure." Prophet ﷺ said, then Prophet ﷺ was the living manifestation of the Quran. Can you imagine that? Prophet ﷺ lived, walked, breathed, and talked nothing but the Quran. That's how he connected with Allah. Whole mission of his life. So let's put Prophet ﷺ into perspective just to conclude. Prophet ﷺ was a human being. He did not have any supernatural abilities. He did not tell people to revere him extraordinarily. He was an approachable person. He was a person from amongst his people, respected, regarded, trusted and believed. He was kind and compassionate. He was fair and just. He did not claim divinity himself, never. He always referred people in believing in one God. He was able to portray to the people, even when he made mistakes about his own mistakes, saying, "Look, I am wrong and God has corrected me in my mistake." Very human quality. If he was a person who was false, a person who was deceiving, a person who was lying, no liar or fraudster ever likes to expose his or her own mistakes. Prophet wasn't any of those. He was just a messenger of God, but a human being. You can approach him, you can love him, you can follow him. But more important lesson that we should take, in fact the most important lesson that we should take from the whole discussion around the life of the Prophet, is building our character. That's all. Prophet's character. وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Allah says in the Quran of Muhammad, in you there is examples of the best of character. So if you follow the Prophet, your character should be good. It's not the outer appearance that emulates the Prophet. It's the inner self that should manifest the Prophet. It's not the food that you eat that becomes following the Prophet. It's how you share the food with others. And that is the true manifestation of following the Prophet. It's not the prayer that manifests following the Prophet, but your devotion in prayer and the subsequent conduct from thereafter that indicates you following the Prophet. So brothers and sisters, I've spoken a lot. I would like you to remember Prophet for he truly was, and not forget him when the month of his birth disappears. And I want you not to just remember him when his month appears. You should remember him in your conduct, in your behavior, in your family, in your society, in your neighborhood, in every level. Because that is what is meant when Allah says, وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. What Allah's Prophet has asked you to do, do them. And what He has told you not to do, leave them. I hope and I pray that you and I, inshaAllah, live the life of the Prophet in our lives and share the goodness of this great man to have walked this earth ever with our non-Muslim friends, our families and our neighbors. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
طلع البدر علينا من ثنيات